Hi everybody, welcome to Chapter 11. If you've watched Chapter 10 from last week, I'm actually recording this right back to back after I did Chapter 10, which it's difficult to think about some of the stuff related to aggression and how to stop that in kids, but it's a good follow-up, and I'm jumping ahead. This is about a 31 slide presentation, but I'm jumping ahead to slide 21 because this is the big idea from this chapter. The decision-making model that Marion has talked about all throughout this class is a four-step process. It's basically telling you to observe the child, decide what the problem is, take action, and reflect. We're going to go over some scenarios. We're going to talk about ways to really minimize challenging behavior in the classroom in a school environment. But when you try to do this, I really think a lot can be said about observing before you make a decision and take action. Sometimes it's okay to just watch and try to understand what's happening, especially if you've gotten to know the children that you're working with. You can see what the problem is, make a decision what it is, and take action to stop it if you possibly can. So I jumped ahead, but we'll go back and we're going to start at the beginning because we still got a lot to say. The purpose of our chapter is minimizing challenging behavior. It's chapter 11. We're going to talk about what causes challenging behavior and how you can use that decision-making model of child guidance, which once again, big idea in this course is the decision-making model, taking those styles of parenting, the styles of just guardianship and counseling styles and applying them. And that's important. So it's really that decision-making model, what that looks like and what that's supposed to be. So think about what challenging behavior actually is. Once again, I'm taking this from the perspective of a former school administrator. Challenging behavior for some of you, you're not going to have challenging behavior in your classrooms. You're going to have a classroom that you've set up, you've managed, you've minimized it in the first place. You're not going to have much. Some of you will be screaming and crying to the principal once a week and saying, this is a problem, that's a problem, this problem, that's a problem, and that's just a personality thing. But I think understanding what challenging behavior is, it's different from everybody. Understanding where it comes from, that's something you can control in your classroom environment. And trying to support children with it, this takes time and it takes the work of other personalities that are in your building. The school guidance counselor is somebody who can be your best friend, and in a lot of ways they can be your best friend. So challenging behaviors are really used by children to see what they can and can't get away with. And this happens all the time. It's just a natural instinct, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure we have all tried to push the envelope and found when somebody could stop us from doing something, or somebody that we could essentially walk all over. And I'm sure everybody can think of at least one or two examples in their life where it's happened to you or you've done it to somebody else. And at some point you have to stop and you have to say no about it. I don't know, anytime I think of challenging behavior, I think of my ex through high school. She was one of the most challenging human beings that I ever dealt with. And I enabled it. And I kept telling myself, I enabled it. And sometimes you just find a way to stop it. And the same thing can work in your relationships that you have with your significant others and with children too, because we're working with people and it's kind of all the same thing. Big ideas in this really are the hot spots, and these are the areas in a classroom where challenging behavior is going to occur, and it's going to occur going into it, and it's going to be a problem. And I've talked about this multiple times. I mentioned it in the last chapter, mentioned it earlier on in the class. Where do we know that there are going to be hot spots in the classroom? They're going to happen by the computers. If you are not on a one-to-one building where you're not using Chromebooks or laptops, and not a lot of buildings are in elementary school yet, but if you're in a place that has 2 or 3 computers in the back, you're asking for trouble. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have computers, you should have computers, but I would kind of keep those by the teacher's desk, just so you can monitor and evaluate that. You're not going to find it in the reading center if you have a mini classroom library, as long as you have enough books. And you're going to find it anytime that you're dealing with class pets or class animals. So if you know that going into this, those are the challenging behaviors in the classroom. The challenging behaviors in a school are the cafeteria. And once again, I know because I just recorded this back to back, and I mentioned this in the last chapter, I pray none of you get cafeteria duty your first year of teaching, because the challenging behavior is going to happen in the cafeteria. It's going to happen on the playground, but probably not as much as the cafeteria. And it's going to happen getting on and off the bus, and how you deal with that. That's going to be something as well. That's going to be something to deal with as well. If you keep trying, eventually you'll find a system that works. Best advice that I have for anybody that's a new teacher is to keep changing things up. Change the classroom around weekly. Change who the kids sit with weekly. The old days of us getting to a point where we had the child, child line up and we set them alphabetically just so that we can pass papers back easily or take attendance. There are still some teachers that do that. They should be fired now if they're still doing it, but you know, it is what it is. But you know, you have an opportunity as an early childhood educator to keep switching things up, and smartest way you can avoid challenging behavior is switching things up. And if you notice that two people just don't get along and you're not going to change it and you've tried, nothing wrong with separation. So, same things, you know, that we've gone over earlier in the class. Unmet needs, lack of skills, and developmental characteristics really cause challenging behaviors. You have no control over some of these. It's really in the hands of the parents. Factors in the classroom, you have 100% control over these, but unfortunately, these other three can sometimes mitigate the other ones, and that can cause a problem as well. So, developmental characteristics are important, and this is why you have to remember really the age groups that you're dealing with. And you know, I'm not critiquing or criticizing the state for changing the certification, but I can look every single one of you in the eye. Well, I'm not looking in the eye because you're watching this video, but if I was, I could look at every single person and say I was freaking amazing with 3rd and 4th graders. But preschool and kindergartners, not so much. You're getting a certification where you have to be essentially ready to do preschoolers, kindergartners, 1st graders, 2nd graders, 3rd graders, 4th graders. And you can't go and you can't say to the building principal, I only want to work with this grade level. But you have to know and understand that kids are very, 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 very different developmentally. And in the state, we certify people now from birth to age 8. How a 3-year-old handles something is going to be much different than a 6-year-old or a 4-year-old. One of the biggest challenges that you're going to have, and I liked kindergarten, but I like kindergarten more for the assessment purpose of it, because just really, you know, seeing if the child is ready physically, intellectually, emotionally, and socially for kindergarten was fascinating to me. You're going to see a lot more in different strategies that you're going to use with, you know, with a child that is ready for kindergarten and one that's not. Intellectually, they might be there at 2 and they might be there at 3. One of our best friends, their daughter is 2 years old. She's reading in complete sentences. She's unbelievably smart. She can count to 100 already. The parents are doing a great job. Mom's with the child all the time. Father was a stay-at-home dad for a little bit. And developmentally, you know, intellectually, that child is there. But emotionally and socially, there's no guarantee. That's why, if I can impart one thing on you in this class, and as you continue on in your programs, when you're characterizing developmental characteristics of children, it's why NACCE has been so smart and so proactive about this PIES model. Do they play off of each other? Yes, but you are a fool if you don't look at them individually, because some children are going to be advanced physically, behind intellectually, advanced emotionally and socially. And I taught over in Vietnam in February of 2015, and one of the things we really worked on with them over there, they have a great early childhood program in Vietnam. Was impressed by it, I loved it, but one of the things that we really looked at in Vietnam was integrating emotional and social learning into the daily curriculum for preschool and kindergarten, which it's important. But to make a long story short, developmental characteristics are different between ages, and you're getting a certification, you're going to deal with a lot of different grades. I handled the older kids better. I always did. Some of you might be able to do it all. Some of you might be better with the younger kids. But you got to know what you're getting into and what certification you're doing. We're going to talk about brain development later on in this course. I think that's important. It's an ed psych concept, but we'll talk about the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, so we'll go over that. But the thing that you need to know really is that children don't understand how to calm down until between 10 and 18 months. And some children still don't even get it until 5 or 6 years old. You're going to have different brain development and different capabilities that a child is going to have. Knowing the difference of those parts, you'll look at in ed psych, but kind of consider, the direction this goes in. So, children lose it if they don't know how to handle themselves. If their brain isn't developed to make a rational decision, that's when something happens. If somebody were to call me stupid, I would probably, if it was joking, I'd probably point back at them and I'd say, "You're stupid." We've conditioned ourselves as adults to do that. Or it might hurt me, depends on the context of it. But if it happens for a child, they might punch somebody. It's different ages, different developments. That's why children lose it. Some kids, if there's nowhere for them to sit, they might just push somebody out of it. We're not going to do that. We have the ability to make judgments. Some children don't yet. And it really depends on if they're able to rationally think or not. So, young children tend to only think of one thing at a time. Children are focused on themselves. They don't care whether or not you as a teacher had a good day. That will happen probably until about 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. 2nd if they're truly, truly socially talented. But kindergarten, 1st grade, me, I. That is what a child is going to think. They're centered on their own ego, egocentric, so they won't take into consideration how the other child feels. They're just going to do what they think is best for them. It's difficult for them to see different perspectives than their own, and that's one of the research that Piaget did when he was looking at different stages of the sensory motor and the pre-operational kind of development of kids. Children learn this over time, but it's something that comes with time, and kids get it at different ages and they get it differently. If children learn something a specific way, it's a hard time for them to condition themselves against it. So, I'm at the time of recording this video, I'm 34 years old, and I grew up Catholic. So, if you're watching this and you're thinking in your mind, and some of you, this might even be way before your time, but if you're left-handed, which I am left-handed, being left-handed in the Catholic faith way back when was a sign of the devil. And I was in school, as an elementary school in 84, 85, and I had a CCD teacher, and I used to write like this, so no, that's how I used to write, but so I would write with my hand like that, and I would write my name, and I would do whatever I needed to do, and she'd take a ruler and she'd just smack me with it. And they had stopped doing that in public school, but in all honesty, she was 80 years old and she was trained and conditioned to do it. But I learned a specific way of doing that, and sometimes I naturally pick up a pencil, and I still do that, and if I do pick up something, if I do pick up a pencil in my hand and I pick it up like this, I still jump, because it's operant conditioning, it's what happened. So even if you've taught a child a better way to do things, the instincts are still going to come back. Most kids eventually can say, "Oh, okay, I got to act this way." Most adults can do that too. You learn different ways to navigate different people. But once you do learn something the wrong way, you need to do it right about 20 different times in a row. This is why with children, routines and repetition is huge. The more you do them, the better. Every single morning in your kindergarten classes have a morning meeting. I liked morning meetings in 3rd and 4th grade. People thought I was crazy, but I liked them. It's a routine. Kids like it. It works. I remember with my 9th grade math class once, I had them sit on the floor and we just sat in a circle and we had a morning meeting. It was a difficult topic and they weren't getting it, and I said, "Hey, let's just have some fun with it." It's a good way to get routines and get people comfortable. Children don't understand that they can control their own anger, and that's important too. They'll express it, and they'll get mad, and they can be reactional people. And when that happens, they don't understand why they're angry, but they're just going to express that they're angry. So, what would a child require before he or she can behave well? These are the basic needs that a child needs. And once again, if we're relating this to theory, we're relating this to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. These are on different ends of the spectrum, but children need to feel loved and appreciated. They need safety and security. They need exercise and physical activity. They need to be moving around. When you look at schools that are cutting recess, it boggles my mind. One of my mentors was Sandy Wade-Stupiansky, and she did a lot of research on play theory and why recess is so important for kids. I cannot stress that enough. Even now, doing the job that I do and going and visiting, I basically go into schools and I visit teachers who are going to be principals at the elementary school level. So it's interesting for me to see the ones that don't send their kids out to recess, because in my mind, I think this is scary because they're going to be a principal and they're going to stop recess for the school. Gotta have exercise and physical activity. Do it in your classes. Sleep and rest, even something as simple as turning the lights off can help a kid. It doesn't give them sleep, but it can put them in a resting position. Nutrition, giving them water. I'm a firm believer of water in the classroom. Some people aren't. I am. Basic medical and dental care, as we talked about earlier, is covered. The classroom structure is important. You have the opportunity to design your classroom environment, do it well, do it right, do it effectively. So, what happens if you've conditioned a child? You can have problems occur. In your kindergarten room, you take the children outside for an hour to let them be free to play and run. Then it's raining, it's snowing. Think about where you live. Some months you're not going to go out at all. Or you're going to put the kids outside in 30-degree weather, which I don't necessarily agree with. This is why good buildings have extra gyms where you can just put the kids in there and they still get their activities. What do you do? If they play inside and it's quiet, that can be problems because then they have all this pent-up energy. Or do you give them activities in the classroom that are non-destructive that can keep them moving? Do you take them to the gym? Is the gym shared with the cafeteria? I know a lot of buildings are out of space and it's something they have to do, and that can be a problem as well. So some children have skill deficits, and that means that they aren't socially or emotionally developmentally ready. If you can get a child to ask how to do something and they can ask you to teach it, that's one of the best ways for them to be better socially and emotionally. And I'm going to keep saying this again and again and again about this class, why I love this class, why this class matters, why it's important. You guys are going to go through a program, and you're not going to get the emotional and social of the pies that often. You're going to get physical, and you're going to get drained with intellectual. You're going to learn everything there is to know about different subjects and content, and that's going to be cool. But you got to know what to do to help a child socially and emotionally, especially with the certification. So, giving a child social skills is a good thing, and it can help. So, children need to be able to, treat others well. They need to learn different skills to be successful. They need to know how to make a friend and how to keep a friend, how to work in small groups, large groups, and how to function. I do want to focus on this because I always forget that I have my little picture up here. So my wife and I save and rescue cats. At the time of this recording, we're 15. It'll be more. It's not going away. This is our cat, Scarface, and yes, we named him Scarface. We were outside of, actually, Butler County Community College, Lawrence Crossing, about a mile down the road from there, and we saw a cat crying and bawling his eyes out, and the cat looked like it was going to die. This is what he looked like. He didn't have a lower lip. His eye was cut. We took him to the vet. We paid a lot of money. They healed him. They fixed him. He doesn't have a lower lip, but somebody had to abuse him. Somebody had to hurt him, and that killed me. And I tell you what, out of all of our cats, he is the most loving now. He's skittish, but he wants cuddles. He wants hugs. That's what he wants, and it's because it scarred him earlier in life. And I've had him now for 5 years, and I think that the same can happen for people too. Children who were scarred at a young age are ones that are going to be more emotionally incompetent the older they get, and it continues on in adulthood too. Try to find ways to help children be successful with dealing with animals and ethical treatments. So, this is you. this is on you. You control what happens in your classroom. You control your own destiny. Can you get pointers from your colleagues? Yeah, but you are the ones that paint that environment in your classroom, what it's supposed to look like, and if challenging behavior is going to occur. Here's another thing too that I see quite frequently going around to the school districts that I go around to.